Hi, and welcome back to the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. I'm Doug O'Brien, your host. I'm joined today with Kenrick Cleveland. He's an old friend of mine, and I'm thrilled to have him here because Kenrick is the guy, he's the first guy I ever met who took NLP, which I learned as a sort of therapeutic methodology, if you will, back in the 80s. And everybody that I knew was either teaching it that way or learning it that way. And Kenrick is the first person I ever met who said, yeah, but what if we apply that to sales and business? And I thought, sacrilege, how dare you, man? You can't do that. But he did. And he sort of made a whole new field, if you will, of NLP applications for sales. I invited him here today because this is the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. And as a coach, we need to be able to do both, be a great coach and also put this other hat on of letting people know we're a great coach. And persuasion, which is what Kenrick is a master of, fits into both those camps. So let's get started. What are we waiting for? Here we go. You are listening to the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast, a show devoted to uncovering the systems and the secrets that set the best apart, where you learn how to take your coaching clients to the next level, while you grow the coaching practice of your dreams. So sit back and relax, or sit up and get excited. Either way, you might want to pay attention. This could be important. Hey there, Kenrick. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Doug. Been a while.
Been a while. So just for clarity's sake, you're in Nicaragua? I should have said that. Maybe that's a secret.
No, right.
Okay, cool.
I mean, we can say it gringo style, Nicaragua. We can say it Spanish style, Nicaragua.
Well, I'll let you do that part.
I'm not very good at either one.
So it's very exciting to me to have you here all the way from there. We almost in the same time zone, though, interestingly, because they don't change. Or never mind. It doesn't matter. That's details we don't need to worry about. Anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us here. As you know, Kenrick, this is the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast, and you are a master of persuasion. And I was just saying in the introduction, we need to have both skills to be a good coach and also to, basically persuade people to hire us for coaching. So that's why I've asked you here, because I know that your wheelhouse is actually both those things, to be persuasive in any context. But I'd like to ask you about that. But before you do, I was reading your most recent book recently, which of course would make sense. And you talk about your relationship. In fact, the book is dedicated to Carol Erickson. And then there's a whole bunch of at least 2 chapters in this book dedicated to Milton Erickson, her dad, her father, the great Milton Erickson. And wow. I mean, number one, I didn't know you had a personal relationship with Carol Erickson. I want to know about that. And this, one of the reasons I was so inspired, I called you up immediately, is this seems so much of a departure for many of us. Persuasion, NLP, use of persuasion seems, I'd hate to say this, but rather manipulative sometimes. People learn these sets of skills and they persuade people through their tricky language. But this, I don't know, seems so much more, heart-centered, if that's a way to put it. But anyway, enough for me talking. Tell us what you want to say.
It's interesting you brought that up. I am so fed up with people out there going to learn the sneaky, tricky, Milton model,
Right.
Buy now, and stuff like this. That I just, But hey, I gotta admit, when I was 18, that's what interested me.
When you started it all, Kenrick Cleveland, because you're the guy that started all that stuff.
Well, I was lucky. I was selling. And it wasn't that good, but I went to a Bandler training and I had this overwhelming thought, this is going to be useful in selling, but I couldn't figure out how. So I was learning it in therapy. So I started doing therapy on the people I was selling, and they would buy. but it took a long time, took
Mm.
hours.
Mm.
And I still didn't feel like I'd done enough, but still they were buying. And I thought, well, there's got to be a way to cut this down from 2 hours to something more reasonable. And I realized some common sense things. I mean, Doug, you laugh and go, well, duh. But, if you learn NLP, by the way, is if someone wants to go and learn it, but they're a salesperson, it will take their feet right out from under them. I mean, they'll come back selling less. They won't be able to do as good because there are some presuppositions in therapy in general, which NLP attempted to model. They did model, and they don't match. For example, as a therapist, I could say, Doug, why don't you have a seat, sit down, close your eyes, and let's get started now. I could do that. But in business, try it. Hey, how you doing, Doug? You want to talk about my DreamState Selling Secrets book? Well, great. Sit down, close your eyes, and I'm going to tell you what to think about it. It ain't going to fly, So it's what do you do when those things don't work? And there's a number of things like that. So took me a long time because, it's like NLP programming, the programming part got me, and it took a long time to transition to that. It's phenomenal for coaches and for therapists, even coaches that are acting as a therapist, which a lot of them are, a lot of what they're doing. Okay, wonderful. That kind of relationship is established, but if you're selling, it's not. Then you have to come at this with a different set of skills. So, I mean, I just wanted to add that to what you're saying. One more thing.
But let me just stop you there. But that is really at the heart of it, what NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis is all about. You become a different. I mean, Erickson said he invented a new therapy for every client that he saw.
100%. And that's exactly how I feel about selling. Or my real love are coaches that are going to sell their client on coming in and talking to them. So the guy's going to sell the client and then going to deliver the coaching, both things. Man, this stuff works gangbusters in that because you want to establish that initial interaction with the client, because later you're going to deliver the coaching. You need them to work with you. You need them to be with you.
Yeah.
You can't, like be hard pressuring someone into buying and then, now let's start your coaching. It doesn't work too well. It's not very convenient. The other thing I want to tell you is, ethics to me, integrity, honor, and all that kind of stuff is so important because, I mean, you can say what you want about it. A hardcore salesperson can say, just give me the techniques, tell me how to do it. Well, if they're going to do it manipulatively, it's going to end up being worse for everybody involved because the person they're selling isn't going to come back happy, and it probably will cancel or charge back. And the salesperson is going to feel their time is wasted. There's only one answer to it, and that is to be really ethical. If I'm talking to a person and they're, there is no match, I can't really give them what they want. I'm going to say it in so many words. I'm going to stop the process, say it in so many words, and suggest they move on. It's that simple. And what did it cost me? Maybe 5 minutes. It didn't take me long to figure it out. But figuring it out saves them and me a terrible experience in the future.
And I think as you're right, it preserves probably the most important thing, which is the relationship. So that, the next time you have something that does fit, they'll be like, oh, perfect. Yeah, let's go. This is
exactly how I feel. Yep. Also, there comes a point when a salesperson will burn out if they're not having and using and working with integrity. So if they are, it assures their own longevity. So there's every reason for them to do it just for themselves.
Cool. Really quick note about that. It just sort of sprang to mind. So I'm going to indulge everyone with this little story. When I met you back in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, probably 87, I think it was. I was working for Tony Robbins, not working for him. I was just a a grunt. I was one of many people on staff. But I eventually worked my way up to being on his staff and a paid member, became the center manager for Tony because his model back then was to everybody who took his training should go sell his trainings. So it was like the forum, it's like, if you've taken it, you must love it. So go tell your neighbors, go tell your family, go tell your mother, go tell your brother, bring them all in. That was Tony's model for sales. And I was terrible at it. I was really bad at it. Even though he taught us techniques, it just wasn't meshing for me. But then I had a kind of revelation that's like, oh, NLP is like an owner's manual for the brain, and everybody has a brain. Everybody could use this, not just weirdos like myself, but anybody, doctors, lawyers, anybody. So when I suddenly shifted and realized this actually is something everyone could use, I became congruent in my presentation. I knew that this was right, and suddenly every sales technique I knew just kind of clicked and worked, and I became like the best salesperson on the team. And that's why I became center manager, et cetera, because of that congruency of like your multiple intelligences lining up, not just your head, but also your heart and also your gut. And it's like, this is ethical. This is right. This is good for you and for me. It's a win-win.
100% agree. Couldn't say it better. And wow, that's a great story.
Thank you. Hey, so speaking of stories, tell me your story about Carol Erickson. How did that come to pass? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I met her at a seminar I attended, and she was the speaker. And she was the main speaker, I should say. And, I had a real thing because I missed studying with Erickson by a year. And okay, I was really young. I didn't know much. And but I figured out that he was the one that he was the big one that NLP went after to model, or one of the big ones. And so I wanted to study with him. So when I looked it up, it was like, well, he only took people that had doctorates, and they were social workers and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, nah, I'll persuade him to let me in. Well, then God, it just kills me to this day. But I thought, all right, I'll wait. I don't have the money. I could have done it. It would have been tight. It would have been, probably would have used that month's rent money and more. But I thought, I'll just put it off. I'll go next year. I know he'll let me in. I know I know he'll work with me. I'll prove myself somehow. And the next year he died. So here's Carol. And I went, you know what? Nothing's stopping me. She will like me. I will be likable. I will be, if it's possible to have a relationship, I want it. So I approached her and I told her the story, and she said, I don't know if you could have got in. And I said, well, so be it. Here I am. Can I get in here? Anyway, she was the most wonderful woman. And next thing I know, she was telling me stories, and I don't know what happened, but anyway, I made myself useful is what I really did. I offered to take her to the airport, offered to, and I just started calling her. She gave me her phone number, and I just started calling her, and we'd talk, and not that long, but we'd talk. And then she was coming out to a state nearby me, and I drove out and picked her up at the airport, and I attended to anything she wanted. And anyway, it just developed over a good number of years. And, I felt like she was like a second mother, almost a cross between a mother and a grandmother. The grandmother, because of the wisdom, not so much just the age, but she was getting up there. But she was just the most loving, beautiful, caring person I'd ever met. In the book, I talk about a story where I was so excited. She came into an area where I was living, and I went to pick her up at the airport, of course. And I was all thrilled. I said, Carol, I can't wait. I want to introduce you to my girlfriend. I did. And, we were there 10 minutes. She goes, Kenrick, I really got to go. And I said, all right. So, we left. She said, I couldn't stand any more of that when we got in the car. And it's like, what? You know, she said, what are you doing with her? No, there's a zero match. You're not going to be even with her for like, you know, at all. I mean, like, what are you doing? Like, come on, make me proud. You know, don't do that. And
Wow.
anyway, a week later, we were done.
That's just amazing. That's just amazing, because that is not an Erickson story. You know, Milton would not have gone like, "What the heck are you doing?" He would have told some story about a snake or something. But you know, that's just.
She let me have it.
Oh, that's great.
But we had that relationship. And then, you know, I would notice when she was talking with others, I was by her side as much as I could be. I mean, I knew better than to, you know, go anywhere else. Anyway, I would notice occasionally she'd look at me while she was talking, but there was no, it's not like she was wanting me to go get her something. It was just, she was making an indirect point, you know, all regularly. I to this day, there will be times when I'm working with a client or I'm talking and I think, you know, Carol, this is from you. I don't know what it is.
That's so cool.
Woman really had a major impact on me.
So tell me about how that influenced this work and this the sales aspect of the Kenrick Cleveland work that's been out there for years.
You know, the first thing I would say, I'll go back to this integrity thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was 18, I was trying to work through a lot of my own issues, trying to get myself in balance, trying to figure out where do I stand, you know, looking at everybody else, you know, not doing things with a lot of integrity, and me trying to figure out where do I fit, what do I do, and she helped me fit. I mean, she helped me figure it out. She helped me gain more understanding about me and what line I shouldn't cross and how I should proceed. It was more like that. It wasn't that she helped me with sales.
Right.
We didn't talk a lot about that.
Sure.
Wherever she went to present, she was talking about metaphor, and which metaphor, I mean, she and metaphor were one. She and hypnosis were one, that you couldn't tell where she began and the other one stopped or started. I mean, it was just, but she didn't really work with me with sales kinds of things.
Right. I assumed that was true. I never would have thought she would, but clearly you've been influenced by her and the sort of Ericksonian world, and Milton is all over your work.
Oh yeah.
So tell us how that Milton Erickson and his work with hypnosis and language, etc., has influenced you.
Well, starting with, you know, Bandler and Grinder's modeling of his work, and you know, the Milton model. I mean, you know, if and then the meta model. You know, some wise guy once said that a Milton model, I mean, a meta model violation was a Milton model pattern. And well, no, not exactly, but okay, you know. Anyway, guy got a PhD out of that deal. Seriously,
could you just explain for the people that don't know what those terms mean, what we're talking about here?
Yeah, and I hate terminology, so I shouldn't even, I not wanted to even use it. But in this case, it applied. Meta model would, you know, meta model, they'll call it meta model violations, which would mean, you know, people saying, well, everybody hates me. And, you know, that's the response to that would be everybody. I mean, you know, so they're trying to get you to restore that which you have deleted, more or less.
So if I may just jump in here real quick. So for my listeners who don't know the NLP, that it's one of the early developments of NLP that's called the meta model. Mostly, I think, developed by John Grinder, who was a linguistics professor at Santa Cruz, California, University of Santa Cruz. But it's about how when we speak that we leave out a lot of information. We either distort things or we delete things or we generalize things. So if I say I'm going to the store, it's like, well, how are you going to the store? Are you going to the store like now? When are you going? There's a lot of information that's been left out. So the meta model is, Meta model is an effort to restore that stuff, to get more specific, to more clear, getting closer and closer to the actual experience, if possible, although that's never possible in language. But you try as much as you can to eliminate the distortions and the generalizations and the deletions, so to get more clear.
Well, wait, Doug, can I?
What?
Oh,
What?
shit. We're
Did you just lose power there? And
power.
It's amazing we still have connection though.
Battery backup, and there's the generator. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So look, persuasion would go more. And there went the generator.
Well, this might be a shorter conversation. We'll have to do this again sometime.
This is not going to work. I've got to shut down. The generator went off, so
okay,
it's not going to come on. This has been a bit of a problem of late.
Well, I'm impressed that you're still on at all. If my power went off, we would just be like off the air. How much time do you
have? 60 seconds. Or now it's on.
All right.
We'll keep the light came back. I'm sorry.
So you were saying,
okay, in persuasion, I want to look more at the Erickson side. I want to look more at. I want to distort, delete, and generalize.
Right.
If I said to a client, and you can really think about the ways in which what I'm saying is already beginning to be applied in what we're going to be doing in our coaching.
Right. So that's where you use the meta model to get them to be specific. So you know exactly what it is they want, what their criteria is, what they're looking for, how they'll feel about it. And then you use what's known as the Milton model, named after Milton Erickson, where you use Ericksonian type of language patterns to be more vague and non-specific so they can fill in the blanks for themselves.
Yes. In addition, in my world, what I'm doing is combining a number of things. I at a higher level, I will teach some of the things like the meta model, but it's really useful, but it'll slow you down in the beginning because the meta model in particular screws up business people. It's hard to get that under control. Because really what we want to do is lead people where we want them to go. And it's not, and yes, so you're right. We could recover things that have been deleted. We could get them to talk about it and we'd understand, but I can shortcut an awful lot of that.
Okay.
So in DreamState Selling Secrets, the book, I talk about something called a worldview. Now the worldview doesn't mean what are your pronouns and what party do you vote for? It doesn't mean that at all. That doesn't mean anything of the sort. It doesn't mean like, I believe that this is that and that's this. I don't care. I'm not going there. When I talk about worldview, I'm talking about 7 windows into the mind. I'm talking about how a person, where they go in their mind. And these levels are thoughts. That would be what I would consider the lowest one. Feelings, that would be the next one. Actions, that would be the third one. So, I just recently was talking to a woman and she said, I just feel like I have so much to do and I'm constantly organizing things so that I can get everything done. And everything we talked about was at the level of action. Well, above that, we have beliefs. That's a significant jump. We have beliefs and then we have values above that. Now, for those who've heard of values-based selling, that's what I brought many years ago. But that's only one doorway in. See, if that's all you have. So one of the things I used to teach was, what's important to you about the financial advisor you'll soon find yourself working with? Well, what that does is it pounds people down a rabbit hole of your choosing. It's manipulative. It's only trying to give you information that you can use, not trying to give anybody else information that they can use. If they will answer that question, and a lot of times they don't even know why they don't want to answer the question, but they don't. But if you can get the answer, well, you probably got the sale too. However, it doesn't always work. You can't always get the answer. Well, I realized something a while back. You don't have to get values. Let's go above values. There is roles: husband, father, mother, entrepreneur, executive, manager, whatever, roles,
Mm-hmm.
coach. Okay.
Yep.
And above the coach is identity. That's the way I separate this. And to me, they're hierarchical. However, if I can get an identity statement, that's much more powerful than if I get a action, like, well, I've got to do this and I've got to do that, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, So the higher up you go, the more power you're going to have by the words they're saying, the more leverage you'll get. However, it doesn't really matter, because wherever they are, even if it's at actions, I'll just join them at that level and expand it. I'll make them tell me more about that. They are therefore in their world, whereupon I will set the frame. By the way, that's something that NLP doesn't get.
Setting the frame.
Yep. They reframe.
Uh-huh.
You always hear about reframing with NLP. You don't ever hear about framing. So
about that,
unclassy salespeople will do this kind of BS thing where they'll start a conversation. They'll say, "Hey, Doug, it's good to talk with you." A little small talk. And then they'll go, "Doug, I'd like to tell you how this conversation is going to go today. So here's what we'll do. I'll find out a little bit about where you're at in your business and what you're trying to do. And once I understand that thoroughly, then I'll tell you a little bit about my coaching. And at the end of our conversation, I'll ask you to make a decision, yes or no. Either one's perfectly fine with me. Fair enough? Now, to me, that's terrible. Okay, that's absolutely horrible. You're eliciting more resistance than anything.
Oh, I've already shut my mind off to you. I'm just looking at you.
That's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah, it must be someone else you're talking about, but whatever. Anyway, so the thing of it is, when you do that, you're setting a frame all right, but it's like you've stepped in cow pies all the way to the point of being able to do it. So the whole room reeks, and it doesn't work. Okay. But there are other ways of doing it that nobody can tell unless they're highly trained. This is something NLP just can't do. NLPers, as a rule, will wait until and to try to gain rapport. How are they going to do that? They will pace what the other person's doing, mirror or whatever, match if they want, but but time is going by now. I want to tell you a rule that I live by. If you have to ask who has the frame in any situation, they do. You don't. If you have to ask, they've already got it. So NLPers, by throwing away the frame and thinking, well, with enough rapport, I'm going to get it back. No, you're not. You've dug a hole so deep, you likely will never get out of it. Then you're chasing your tail going, how else can I serve you, Mr. Prospect? What else can I do to help you?
Can I stop you there, Kenrick? Because I think if we just establish this one thing that NLPers don't get, and I might be one of them, that might be incredibly valuable by itself if none of the other conversations took place. So I'm just going to ask you a little bit more about clarity, because you probably are familiar with George Lakoff, his work. He talks about framing in there, and he talks, I don't want to go into politics at all, but he does set forth the idea that different politicians and different political parties are proficient at setting a frame about things. So instead of calling it inheritance tax or whatever, they call it the death tax.
Yes.
Or so they give it a frame that this is death tax, and that sounds horrible. Nobody wants death tax, it's, so they sort of set a frame about it. And then, the opposition has to just argue like, well, the reason it's good is because this, but people are already thinking, that's a bad thing. They've accepted that frame. So is that the kind of thing you're talking about when you say setting a frame here?
I just made a note of George Lakoff. I want to remember that name. Been a while. Okay. So think it through like this. So we want to make a political point, any point. I don't care, but staying on what you just said with what George talks about.
Okay.
So you want to make a point about tax. Okay. So how do we reframe that subject? It could be a death tax. It could be we could call it most anything. We could call it a prosperity tax. We could call it a gift tax to the government. I mean, we could frame it a million ways. It may not work, but I mean, this is like, Reagan when he was attacked by Mondale many, many years ago, probably beyond most people that can remember. But
who were those guys?
yeah, well, Reagan was running for president, and he was old.
Won. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was old. And so the guy that was trying to challenge him said, well, Mr. President, how old will you be if you're, brought into office again? And Reagan says, I promise you something. I'm not saying his words exactly right, but pretty close. Promise you something. I will not make age a factor of this. I won't hold your youth and inexperience against you, for example. And so he reframed age as his has wisdom, the other guy has youth and inexperience.
Yeah.
That's still reframing. He still took some difficult thing and he switched its meaning. That's reframing. So
and he did it so well, just by the way, that even Mondale laughed at it, and it just took away the argument entirely.
It was gone, and that moment is when he won re-election.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be my argument. I'd argue that he won right then and there. Like, that were the the few words that circled the earth in seconds flat. Mondale was hanging his head, going, that's it. How do you come back to that?
Yeah.
Well, that's the power of reframing, which I think is an incredible tool. Which, of course, you have a book on Sleight of Mouth, and I have program called Power Patterns that leverages AI and all. I mean, just it's an incredible skill in general. However you want to learn it. I mean, it's an incredible skill. But everybody doesn't get the core, the root of it, which is the frame in general. Let me show you one.
Okay.
So we're going to talk. Why are we going to talk? Well, we're going to talk about here, let me give you two examples. You're a podcast host. You would like to have me on the show. Well, it's your show. You're the podcast host. I'm going to be the guest. Okay, there's the frame. You're the podcast host. I'm the guest.
Yeah.
Neither one of us really has the frame, but if you wanted to push it, you could have the frame. But when you reach a certain point, you're comfortable allowing flexibility in that.
Mm-hmm.
You could seize control anytime you want. You have that ability as the host. Okay, let's say it's a sales environment. Let's say you're coming to me for coaching. Okay, well then I'm the coach and you're finding out you're the client. You want to find out about that. That's the frame. That's how we're setting up this context. Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
Now then, if you said to me, wait. I just have a couple of questions. Can I just ask you a couple of questions first? You just took the frame.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If I said no, I need to go through an order of things first, if you don't mind. I want to make sure this is a good fit for both of us. So let me do it this way, and I'll make sure there's time for you to ask questions too. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I've just taken the frame.
Cool.
Somebody's going to take that frame in the beginning. Somebody's going to do that. If not you, they have it. Here's frames fight. Frames are unconscious. Frames will always will be a superior and an inferior. Always. Although when there's two equals and they're pretty smart, then you may find that they take a neutral standpoint, but that's not real often. Fighting for dominance is just a thing. People will experience it, but it's not so conscious. It's more unconscious.
Okay.
So what I want to do is set a frame quickly. If nothing else, where are we going? So this is a great time for me, if it is for you, Doug, to talk about how persuasion might be really useful for your listeners.
Okay, so let's just do a little practicality for the coaches. I assume most people listening to this webcast or podcast are a coach or interested in being a coach. You know, it's Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. It would make sense that that's who I would assume is listening. Let's assume that and talk to. Let's say I'm a coach and I want to be more persuasive at getting people to hire me for coaching.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do I set a frame that's ethical and heartfelt and connected and yet still does the job?
Doug, if I didn't know you, I'd tell you to come join my class. But
you don't have to tell us if this is proprietary.
This is some secret sauce, but it's easy. So let me do it.
Okay.
Let's really give. So setting the frame initially is as easy as thinking of a frame is context. What is the context? What is our purpose? What do we want to do? Okay. Why is that important? Because it's going to dictate where things head from there.
Okay.
So if you started talking and you said, Kenrick, I'm here to learn about what you do. I want to know a little more. And I want to see if down the road, this might be useful for me. I'd like to see if when I have enough money down the road, I could afford to work with you. What's the frame? The frame is, I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to do it later, maybe, if I can afford it. So we have money as an issue. And the whole frame is screwy for me. If that happened to me, I'd say, all right, well, listen, I don't have time for these kinds of discussions, but I want to invite you to look at my website where I talk a lot about these kinds of things. And as soon as you are ready and you do have the money, and here's the basics of what that would be, you'll find it all at the website. Then by all means, let's touch base again. Neediness kills. Neediness kills. Neediness is the biggest killer I know of salespeople, coaches, entrepreneurs, everybody. Ooh, I got a live one on the call with me right now. I got Doug. I got to close him. No, I don't. No, I don't. If I'm needy, it will come right across to you and you'll go, Jesus, what's wrong with this guy? Right? So I don't want to be needy, but I must set the frame so that I can get the conversation to where we need to go. In fact, I view the entire conversation that we're going to have as a series of frames. I'm going to set the frame. The frame in the beginning will be, how can I help you to discover that persuasion will impact your life in a way that you need to be involved with it now? I wouldn't use those exact words. I might just simply say, Doug, it's great to talk to you. Is this a good time for us to talk about how what I do with persuasion can help you in your podcasting or in your coaching? Answer that. Watch. Answer.
Oh, you want me to? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
1, 2, 3. Come back.
Do it again.
Is this a good time to talk about how what I do with persuasion can help you be a better coach?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I need it. I mean, I don't want to say I'm needing it because neediness kills, but yeah, I totally.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Tell me more about that, would you? Now I'm beginning an elicitation process, but the frame is set. The minute you said, oh, yeah, we're not here to talk about price. And by the way, my way of doing it is I always give that on the website. I never ever, or in marketing material, I never ever withhold the price. Because let me tell you something. The last thing you want to do is come have a wonderful conversation with me while the 200-pound elephant in the room right over there is, what's the price? Can I afford it?
Small elephant, by the way, 200-pound elephant. That's a baby.
Well, that's a little baby one, but I mean, okay, 2,000-pound elephant. I mean, it's the 800-pound gorilla. Let's use that metaphor.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing of it is, we're in your head, you can't pay full attention to me because you don't know what it costs.
Right.
But if you already know, and now you want to talk, well, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now the frame is set that we're talking about how what I do can help you as a coach.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Now I'm going into an elicitation process. I'm going to begin moving people through time. I'm going to move them around through time. Okay. And that loosens their hold on reality. It makes them more pliable. And so as I'm going to, at the same time, I'm going to use what I'm hearing about their worldview. So let me give you an example. So what made you interested in persuasion? What made you call today?
Well, like I said before, I am a coach, and I've been doing this for years and years and years, and yet my practice is not as full as it could be, and I feel like I'm missing a piece. I'm missing a piece, and I think it may be persuasion.
When you say it's not as full as it could be, how does that affect you?
It makes me worry and a little anxious.
Okay. First of all, we have role. You're a coach.
Yeah.
It's the first thing you said. I'm a coach. You named a role. I'm going to enter your world at the world of coach. Next, you said worry. I'm going to get more specific. So I'm just going to make it up. I don't want you to actually say it because, like.
I'm just play acting. I'm fine. But yeah, go for it.
But if you said worry, yeah. I might ask you, well, tell me about what that worry is. But I'm careful here. I'm really careful. If you go into that worry, well, I sit at night and I'm frustrated. I think I stop that dead cold. This is not about problem-based anything. It's the opposite. Say that to me just so I can demonstrate it. What does worry mean?
I get so worried that I sit at night and I'm just going through all these scenarios in my head and just telling myself this is.
Wait 1 second, Doug. You're worried about what?
I'm worried about the future. I'm worried about, whether I'll be able to, ever, stop working, and I'm just going to be doing this for the rest of my life because I just can't get ahead.
Are we talking about money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Money.
All right. Sounds to me like what you really want. Watch, I'm doing this. Sounds to me like what you really want is you want to go from worry to go to peace, to having more money, to be the role that you are, the coach that in your heart you get up every morning and you say, I'm Doug O'Brien, I'm the coach, and it feels good. And you need the coaching practice to be full of people that are excited to be with you because you're the coach, because that's the service you offer to the world. I'm staying at the level of role, and I am now including the switched over negative into the positive, and I'm dealing with the value of money. That's really what's going on. So we have coach and value. You love what you do, you love the role, and you have a value conflict going on regarding money.
Cool. Okay. So you're able to use those 7 doorways in various ways of finding, okay, I'm here and I'm here. So then I can do your guiding through time and going back and forth and link those together to say.
And we can say it like this too. The Archimedes quote, give me a long enough lever and a fulcrum and I'll move the world.
Yeah.
This is the long enough lever.
Cool.
The fulcrum is the rest of the process. But that's what this is. I mean, that it is leverage. It is the greatest leverage known to mankind, in my opinion. It is absolute leverage. I'm able to leverage so now I have the frame. Now you're following me. I've established authority. Not only that, but I have, and by the way, the authority is just that I'm leading you and you're following me. So I'm doing it with an authoritative tone, notice.
But it's also just even though we were play acting there, I felt like, oh my God, this guy really knows me. It felt connected, even though I was making it up. But
the integrity comes in. See,
yeah,
it all fits.
Wow, that's great.
So now I've got the frame, and I know where you are on the worldview thing that I use, right? I'm demonstrating authority. That is all the rapport you need. That actually equals more trust than any amount of pacing I could do for the next half an hour.
That's good. That's really good. It's really good to know. I think the pacing and leading thing has been overblown a lot in the NLP world over time. Remember, we both worked with Dave Dobson along the way. Dave used to just say, you have the friendly hello. That's all you really need. You don't say hello throughout the entire conversation.
That's right.
You say it at the beginning. But once you can do what you've just done, I feel like not only do we have some, rapport matching and nodding our heads at the same time, but it's like you really actually see inside me. You see me.
That's the point of what I do. That's the point of this system. That's how it works.
Nice.
And you start with understanding the worldview. It takes a little bit of effort, but it's not hard. And I haven't even got to the top, the highest one that we always will get to, which is the dream state. Once we go through this process, I'm going to elicit your dreams. Now I'm going to call it slightly different. And you'll go there and you'll tell them to me, and you'll do it without me even having to prompt you. Now,
I have to stop you there, Kenrick, because we're running out of time here, and
okay.
So I'm going to leave that little cliffhanger for folks if they want to learn more. So how do people, Kenrick Cleveland, learn more about what you've been talking about if they want to learn some more of this Kenrick Cleveland magic?
I mean, at our website, thepowerarc.com, and it's ThePowerArk, the Power Arc. And yes, I love the imagery. Thepowerarc.com/D, like dog, SSS. DreamState Selling Secrets. That's the book. And you can get it there. And no, it's not available on Amazon. And I have no intention of making it available on Amazon. But you can get it right there. And so that's a good place to start. Other things to learn there too. Yeah.
What was the last thing you said?
And I mean, you can see things at the website. You can explore and learn things. And
very cool.
You have a question, bottom right, click it and send a question.
Sweet. It's fantastic. And knowing that I did that recently, I know that you get back to people quite quickly. So
do my best.
Yeah. Beautiful. Hey, we'll of course include that information in the program notes below. But ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this, then check out Kenrick, check out things, and please subscribe wherever the subscribe button is. It helps us more than you can imagine. Thank you very much. Kenrick, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
It's great to see you.
Anytime.
Stay well, stay healthy.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
This has been the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure seeing you again. Hope to see you again real soon. Come back next week when we have another gripping and exciting episode of the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. And if you want to, you can find out more about us, each and every one of us, at essentialcoachingskills.com. Thanks.